Situations where it cut me off while I was talking about DeAndre Ayton. At the same time, I was walking past somebody who was not well. But nevertheless, picking up where I left off, I think DeAndre Ayton's defensive responsibilities with the Lakers is going to be a bit less than what they may have been with Portland, because in Portland he was asked to do more around the perimeter and was asked to recover defensively in the paint a lot more than what the Lakers are, in theory, expected to ask him to do. Now, I do think some of our perimeter defensive ability is going to be here and there, because I think our best perimeter player is Marcus Smart, and I do not actually know how much the Lakers are going to ask Marcus Smart to play defense. That's my thing. I'm not really sure how much they're going to ask him to be out there just in general. Will he always mirror Ayton's production, or his minutes rather? And if so, that can determine how little we'll actually need DeAndre Ayton to do some of those other defensive things. If there's anything I've learned in watching those who've talked about Ayton, is that he is somebody who, if asked to solely play perimeter defense, or rather, the opposite, if solely asked to rim protect, he should be able to do that at a very good level at the center position. And so if we can limit what we ask him to do defensively to just being somebody who can rim protect, from what I've learned, he should be somebody who can produce positive results consistently for our team. And so that's my hope, is that in this acquisition, we can limit some of his responsibilities defensively that he had in the last two places he played, and ask him to be a sole rim protector and rebounder. And if so, we will find ourselves in a position to get the most out of this player defensively, and ultimately have that rim protection that the Lakers have so desperately needed over the last couple of years at that center position. Because, of course, again, AD was a hell of a rim protector, to say the least, but did not want to play the center position, and that, as I've said already, is a problem in and of itself. So where do we go from here with Ayton? I think the most important thing for Ayton is to stay healthy. Beyond everything, for him, just like for Luka, just like for everyone on the team, it's about him and his conditioning staying where it needs to be, about him taking care of himself to the best of his ability so that he can produce. If he can produce, the next step is for our coaching staff to put him in positions to do things that fit who he is as a basketball player. He is a very elite mid-range shooter, and that's something I don't know that everybody knows, but he is a very, very significantly efficient mid-range guy from like 15 feet, 12 feet. And so I would like to see us get him in some pick and pop situations early in a lot of basketball games. Early, let him get those touches, let him get that shot off, let him see that fall early. I think people are going to want him to dunk a little more, play a little more in the paint than he would ultimately like to. I don't know the science behind why he's not more of a dominant interior player. I haven't watched enough of him to know, but there have been major criticism thrown in his direction about him not being someone who likes to play in the paint, dunking the ball and just doing all that easy bucket stuff. He would like to play the mid-range a bit more, and I'd like us to have that in our mind early as we approach how we're going to judge this player. Because if you're not letting him get his shots off from the areas that he's most comfortable in, he's probably going to find himself a bit dejected. And then from there, you can find yourself with a bad DeAndre Ayton, which is what we desperately do not want. So that's what I would do. I would want to get him involved early in basketball game, let him get his touches, and let him get them pick and pop shots off early. And I think that opens up the rest of his game. And when he was drafted, he was somebody who was expected to be able to develop a three-point shot. I don't think that ever came around. But naturally, he is not a overly deficient three-point shooter. Now, of course, there's a lot of different types of three-point shooting. You're not expecting him to catch off the dribble and move with the basketball and shoot that way. That's not what you're expecting from him. But a nice flat-footed straightaway three-point shot, or a corner three, a short corner three, he should probably be able to hit. And so that's something I want to see him try a couple times this season. If we get a good season out of him doing that, I think it'll go a long way in us being a very efficient offensive team. And of course, he can catch lobs. This is one thing that you definitely want to have him do early and often. I'm sure Luka will take care of that. But this is one of the better conditioned centers in basketball, especially as it pertains to running the floor. So we're going to be able to get a lot of those long passes off that LeBron and Luka like to throw, those full court passes off rebounds. A lot of those, I would expect they would be targeting DeAndre Ayton on those passes to try to put him in a position to get some easy buckets down there. And so, it's a lot of things about DeAndre Ayton that I think can be really, really positive. But it's so important that we get off to a good start. It's so important that you keep him engaged. It's so important that you ask him to do things that he's good at. Because he has the type of personality, it seems, that if you ask him to do things that he's not, and he fails, he'll lose interest. And that's what I think has happened in certain situations that he's been a part of. So, as I said, one of his greatest strengths, in my opinion, is running the floor. I just think he runs the floor better than most centers. He always has. He's a very athletic player. He gets to his spots very fast. He rolls fast, so you want to put him in as many pick-and-roll situations as possible. And he rebounds well, which is really going to help our team a lot. So, we talk about some of the best signings in the league. Ayton is also one of them, in my opinion. And so for those who are trying to assess how the Lakers did in the offseason, if you ask me, we have two of the most important signings in the whole league this year. Bringing in Marcus Smart, bringing in DeAndre Ayton, those are two players that really fit positions of need in multiple areas for this unit. And so you got to give credit where credit is due. Rob Pelinka's done a great job in getting those players. And of course, I was already a fan of Jake LaRavia. I think he's a nice role player. I don't have super high expectations for him, but I think we're getting him at the right time for him to really make a name for himself as a role player. We'll have to see what JJ thinks of him, because you could have high expectations for a player, but if the coach doesn't give him the opportunities, it really doesn't amount to you seeing the expectations you have. But I've seen enough from Jake LaRavia to know that he is a competent scorer. And given the fact he's only 23 years old, I think that the upside is obviously in place for him to become better than what he is. We got guys like Trevor Ariza back in the day. I think of a guy like KCP when we got KCP, when we picked up Malik Monk. They were kind of in the same place that Jake LaRavia is right now when they got here. And when they left here, they had significantly raised their popularity and expectations for what it is that they could do. They had made a name for themselves out here. And I think that Jake LaRavia is in a very similar spot to those guys who came here and flourished. So I'm excited about what this could potentially mean for him. And I think he's going to be a very, very welcome addition to the Lakers, boosting our overall youth. And maybe even some perimeter defense if the rumors that are being said about him is true, that he's a better defender than people think. I think we could potentially see him being a very positive link to our defensive unit. And so that's what I want to say about Jake LaRavia. I was already a fan. He's not going to surprise me when he does good things in our uniform. And I think that the Los Angeles Lakers got him at the perfect time. And then of course we talk about our young guys. I'm thrilled about our young players that we're picking up. Abdou Thiro and Marshallonis, the other guys that we picked up as well. I love what I saw from most of those guys, and hope they're able to get some opportunities this year. So yeah, man, this Lakers situation's looking positive. Austin Reeves, I think it's been recently said that the Lakers are interested in retaining Austin next year, that he will likely be offered an extension that pays him upwards of $30 million a year, that he is viewed as the third star for this Laker unit going forward, and maybe even the second star if we're not able to replace LeBron with anybody when he retires. I love Austin. I just don't know that I love the fit anymore. You know, it's almost like I feel about De'Aaron Fox in San Antonio. I love De'Aaron Fox making that amount. I don't know that I love that contract in San Antonio. With Austin on a $30 million contract for us, with Luka next to him, I just wonder if that's really the greatest running mate for Luka, given the fact that Austin has some deficiencies defensively. Now, as a piece on Luka's team, I feel great about Austin, so long as you have the perimeter defense and rebounding and all these different other things that can make up for their deficiencies defensively. But when you're asking them to be a backcourt together of the future, making up about 50% of your cap, then I have to ask, is Austin really the right guy for that role? Next to deficient defensive Luka Doncic? I don't have the vision that Austin is in his best role in that situation. I think in a perfect world, Austin's got his own Luka Doncic situation. He's his own Luka. He's not obviously as good as Luka, but that's what he's supposed to be for somebody else. That, where you give him the ball, tell him to go do a lot of stuff, make plays for other people, hit shots from behind the arc, control playmaking duties, and then have a bunch of athletes and big wingy guys around him. I'm not sure they're not the same player, just obviously Luka being a much greater version. And that's kind of what I saw last year. The only thing about Austin is he's not nearly as efficient. He can tend to be an inefficient player when given that role. So I'm kind of hesitant to really give him that role if I'm, say, a team like random Brooklyn or something like that. Austin tends to brick a lot of shots when you put him in that role, but I don't know that's not the role that he ultimately wants to grow into or is not best for growing into in the long run. He just has to become more efficient. But him getting to the line repeatedly is exciting to me. His three-point ability when his rookie season was excellent. Since then, it's kind of been all over the place. I don't dock him for how bad he looked against Minnesota in the playoffs because I understand he had that foot injury. So that's in the forefront of my mind, and I just kind of like write that off as he would not have played as poorly, shot as poorly or what have you if he were healthy. And so that's my little take on that situation. But ultimately, Luka and Austin, I just think your defense is by design is going to be very, very bad. I think that's what really concerns me. I don't know that the ceiling of a Luka-Austin backcourt is going to be able to stop traffic, you know what I'm saying, if they were standing in the middle of the street. And so that's my concern. I don't particularly think that works. But it's tough. Like, if you ask me, do I want Austin on my team going forward? The answer is going to be 1,000% yes. I don't want to see Austin in no other uniform other than Los Angeles Lakers uniform, if I'm being honest with you. I really don't. He's that much of a Laker to me. I was that much of a believer from Jump Street. Immediately, when I did homework on him right after we picked him up, I was a believer in what he could do. Now, I didn't know he was going to be this good, but that just makes it even better. Yeah, he turned out to be this good. But I'm going forward with Luka. Did I see a path to us getting Luka? Absolutely not. If you told me that Luka was going to be on my team, would I be as married to having Austin on my squad next to him? Not without a ridiculous amount of defensive talent in there to help those guys. I'm going to need Wemby and Amen Thompson to make me feel confident about that backcourt, if I'm being honest with you. Like, that's the type of defensive talent I'm going to need Anthony Davis back. I'm going to need what's another amazing defender? Evan Mobley type defensive player. That's the type of talent that I need playing defense around those guys if I'm going to stick them in my front court, or back court rather, and ask to play with one another. I need ridiculous amounts of defensive backup, in order for me to think that can actually win a championship. And so that's my concern. If I'm going to go big on Austin and go big on Luka, do I have the ability to bring them enough defensive help to make them as good as they need to be to reach my goals? And I just don't think so. I don't think the Lakers can bring themselves what they'll need in order to make that make sense. We used to complain about D'Angelo Russell and Austin backcourt. We had Anthony Davis in the paint as a rim protector. I don't think this is that much better defensively. Now, obviously, D'Angelo Russell, significantly less offensive player than Luka, obviously. But the defensive deficiencies, I think, are mirroring one another on paper. Now, Luka played some good defense for us at times last year, and we, without great defensive talent, were able to get a lot of stops and even play our way into being a top 10 defensive team at one point. So the idea is that we would try to use some of those same schemes and put ourselves in a position to duplicate some of that. But can that be sustainable over the course of several years? Not likely. And so that's my thing. I love Austin on this team. I want him to stay here. But he has to take on a very unique role that makes me feel confident that we can run him next to Luka the Don. And that role is likely a Manu Ginobili role. And I don't think of Austin as a bench player. I don't want people to think that in a nutshell. I think Austin should be coming off the bench. I don't. But if you're playing in this situation with this scheme, I do believe that you probably would be better for having a significantly more talented perimeter defensive player in your main lineup next to Luka the Don. This is why I was a little disappointed that we weren't able to keep Max Christie, because I think Max Christie was developing into that player. I think he was in the midst of developing into that player. And I just thought it was a bit of a poison pill for what we were trying to build, not being able to retain him and slap him next to Luka. I would have loved to have offered the Dallas Mavericks anything except for that perimeter help defender that would ultimately complement Luka. And I think that's one of the reasons why they demanded that we take it, or that we offer it, because it would, in theory, put us in a position to be significantly deficient in the areas that would complement Luka the Don the most. That's just my take on things. I think, in theory, you would expect that Marcus Smart would be able to replace Max now at this point. If he's healthy, I have no doubt that he probably will be able to. But I still think the Lakers are going to have some struggles if Marcus Smart has more injury issues, which history is now telling us we can expect. And so I think the acquisition of Abdou Thiero could potentially help us in that area. But I also am concerned that Abdou Thiero is not quite ready or won't be ready right away. So that's the thing. I think Abdou Thiero's got extreme learning curve. I think his three-point shot could be deficient. And I just am not certain that we're going to be able to put him at the 2 spot necessarily consistently if we need to. And I think he's more of a 3 and a 4. So I think the Lakers are going to probably want to lean on Abdou Thiero a bit more than they probably are expecting they'll have to, just to make their perimeter defense as competent as they hope it will be. Obviously, Vanderbilt is a big part of this conversation as well, but my expectations for Vanderbilt are also very low, given his injury issues in the past, and his three-point deficiencies as well. So when you start talking about slapping Abdou Thiero next to Vanderbilt, you start realizing that you're shrinking the floor for the other players on the offensive end. You may be very helpful on the defensive end, to say the least, but on the offensive end, you have a shrunk basketball floor. People crowding people out, leaving those guys open from behind the arc, daring them to shoot. And so that's something that you don't really want at all. And it's something that we're going to ultimately find ourselves having if we put our best defensive players on the floor at the same time. So, all in all, my expectations for this Laker team are a bit under what I think the consensus is. I think we'll be in the mix as a playoff team, but I don't expect us to be a contender this year.
Where this person was back when I worked at the Dome.
My expectations is that we'll be somewhere in the mix between 3 and 9, I guess. I think that's what the expectations for this team is. And I just think that's just what it is. That's where we're going to land, in my opinion. And that's assuming we are able to maintain our health with our main pieces. So, yeah, man, there's a lot of things about this team I do like. And I think when you're talking about injury expectations amongst the field, there's a world where you find yourself in the one spot just off the strength of other people getting hurt. The West is going to be a dogfight. There are some much improved teams, but there are also some teams that didn't get better, and I don't think we're one of those teams. We did. And so I'm excited about that being the case, and we'll see what happens, with this Los Angeles Lakers team. Of course, you're talking about LeBron James when you're talking about the Lakers as well. I think he has a lot to show. I'm not going to say prove because that's kind of ridiculous, but I think he's going to want to have that mentality. He's going to try to have that propel him to his greatest self. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's not happy about how certain things went down this offseason, and I think it's just the motivator that he needs to come back ferocious this upcoming season. So I want people to understand that we got a unhappy LeBron James on our hand, and I don't think that's something that we've seen very often. I think he's very angry about not being told about the sell of the team. I think he's very angry that we traded away his friend Anthony Davis. I think he's very angry that there's a lot of rumors out there that the Lakers are ready to move on from him, and that sort of thing. And I just think he's going to allow it to motivate him to being as dominant as he's always been. I would not be surprised to see LeBron James put up the exact same numbers that he's been putting up pretty much his entire career. I would not be surprised. The unprecedented is to be expected from this person at this point. And he's taken care of his body consistently for years and years and years, and there's no reason for him not to be able to continue to be an elite athlete, even at 41 years of age. So that's exactly what I expect from LeBron. I don't expect any fall off this season. Too much motivation, way too much motivation. So, yeah, that's what I want to tell people. Expect a better than expected LeBron James. He has improved his three-point shot significantly over the last 6 years, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him continue to increase his overall abilities from behind the arc this year, because I don't think he's going to try to do as much in the paint going forward. He's been working on his mid-range game a little bit more as well. I expect him to take that shot a little bit more, try to pull himself a little bit away from the paint. The expectations is not that he won't have to play as much center anymore. Hopefully we stay healthy with our centers, and that will be the case. But all in all, I'm pretty damn certain that LeBron James has got a fire lit up under him, and it's going to be hell to pay for everybody who comes against him, as usual. And so that's my hot take. I don't expect much of a fall off from LeBron from last year to this year. I don't. I really don't. So I just want people to know that I think his production is still going to be elite this season. So yeah, man, that's really what's on my mind. I just wanted to come here. Of course, I had to break this video up in half because I got the Amber Alert that cut my last video off. So we'll make this a part 2. But yeah, man, just wanted to give y'all some Laker content. Ain't much to talk about in the offseason, especially in the month of August. But, we'll come up with something here and there, and we'll discuss it when we do. You'll see my face. But that's pretty much what I have to say. My name is BDO44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.